So today we're going to be doing this text. We're just going to be going through this text called Dzogchen Practice in Everyday Life. It's a text that Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche gave or wrote when he was alive, and it's something that I've actually kind of returned to again and again throughout the years, just because it's a really nice, short, pithy text on the practice of Dzogchen. So I thought we could kind of go over this today, just in preparation for our upcoming retreat in a couple of weeks. For those of you who don't know, I think most of you know this, but Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, he was a very famous teacher, kind of one of the masters that came out of Tibet, before he did a lot of retreat and was very traditionally taught in Tibet before the Chinese Revolution. And so he was one of those lineage masters that kind of bridged the transition from, old Tibetan tradition in Tibet, and then kind of the migration into Nepal and India after the Chinese Revolution in the 50s and 60s. And he was actually the head of the Nyingma school for quite a while. And he wrote a lot. There's many books that you can find that are published by him. Taught a lot in the West. He was one of the teachers that came after Trungpa kind of opened the Tibetan Buddhist teachings in America in the 70s, 60s and 70s, and then a lot of teachers were coming. So Dilgo Khyentse, during the 80s and 90s would come to teach in America. So there is a lot of material, but this is definitely one of my favorite texts. I'll actually share this here in the chat. Let's see, I should have that. So I thought today we'd actually start. We can go through the text. I'll read the text actually. It's not that long. So I think going through it and kind of reading through it together, and then we can kind of go back and talk about sections or ask questions, things like that. So we'll start just by reading through the text together, just so we're all on the same page. All right. The everyday practice of Dzogchen is simply to develop a complete carefree acceptance and openness to all situations without limit. We should realize openness as the playground of our emotions and relate to people without artificiality, manipulation, or strategy. We should experience everything totally, never withdrawing into ourselves as a marmot hides in its hole. This practice releases tremendous energy, which is usually constricted by the process of maintaining fixed reference points. Referentiality is the process by which we retreat from the direct experience of everyday life. Being present in the moment may initially trigger fear, but by welcoming the sensation of fear with complete openness, we cut through the barriers created by habitual emotional patterns. When we engage in the practice of discovering space, we should develop the feeling of opening ourselves out completely to the entire universe. We should open ourselves with absolute simplicity and nakedness of mind. This is the powerful and ordinary practice of dropping the mask of self-protection. We shouldn't make a division in our meditation between perception and field of perception. We shouldn't become like a cat watching a mouse. We should realize that the purpose of meditation is not to go deeply into ourselves or withdraw from the world. Practice should be free and non-conceptual, unconstrained by introspection and concentration. Vast, unoriginated, self-luminous wisdom space is the ground of being, the beginning and the end of confusion. The presence of awareness in the primordial state has no bias towards enlightenment or non-enlightenment. This ground of being, which is known as pure or original mind, is the source from which all phenomena arise. It is known as the Great Mother, as the womb of potentiality, in which all things arise and dissolve in natural self-perfectedness and absolute spontaneity. All aspects of phenomena are completely clear and lucid. The whole universe is open and unobstructed. Everything is mutually interpenetrating. Seeing all things as naked, clear, and free of obscurations, there is nothing to attain or realize. The nature of phenomena appears naturally and is naturally present in time-transcending awareness. Everything is naturally perfect just as it is. All phenomena appear in their uniqueness as part of the continually changing pattern. These patterns are vibrant with meaning and significance at every moment. There is no significance to attach to such meanings beyond the moment in which they present themselves. This is the dance of the five elements, in which matter is a symbol of energy and energy is a symbol of emptiness. We are a symbol of our own enlightenment. With no effort or practice whatsoever, liberation or enlightenment is already here. The everyday practice of Dzogchen is just everyday life itself. Since the undeveloped state does not exist, there is no need to behave in any special way or attempt to attain anything above and beyond what you actually are. There should be no feeling of striving to reach some amazing goal or advanced state. To strive for such a state is a neurosis which only conditions us and serves to obstruct the free flow of mind. We should also avoid thinking of ourselves as worthless persons. We are naturally free and unconditioned. We are intrinsically enlightened and lack nothing. When engaging in meditation practice, we should feel it is to be naturally as eating, breathing, or defecating. It should not become a specialized or formal event, bloated with seriousness and solemnity. We should realize that meditation transcends effort, practice, aims, goals, and the duality of liberation and non-liberation. Meditation is always ideal. There's no need to correct anything. Since everything that arises is simply the play of mind as such, there is no unsatisfactory meditation and no need to judge thoughts as good or bad. Therefore, we should simply sit. Simply stay in your own place, in your own condition, just as it is. Forgetting self-conscious feelings, we do not have to think, I am meditating. Our practice should be without effort, without strain, without attempts to control or force, and without trying to become peaceful. If we find that we are disturbing ourselves in any of these ways, we should stop meditating and simply rest or relax for a while. Then we resume our meditation. If we have interesting experiences, either during or after meditation, we should avoid making anything special of them. To spend time thinking about experiences is simply a distraction and an attempt to become unnatural. These experiences are simply signs of practice and should be regarded as transient events. We should not attempt to re-experience them because to do so only serves to distort the natural spontaneity of the mind. All phenomena are completely new and fresh, absolutely unique, and entirely free from all concepts of past, present, and future. They are experienced in timelessness. The continual stream of new discovery, revelation, and inspiration, which arises at every moment, is the manifestation of our clarity. We should learn to see everyday life as a mandala, the luminous fringes of experience which radiate spontaneously from the empty nature of our being. The aspects of our mandala are the day-to-day objects of our life experience moving in the dance or play of the universe. But by this symbolism, the inner teacher reveals the profound and ultimate significance of being. Therefore, we should be natural and spontaneous, accepting and learning from everything. This enables us to see the ironic and amusing side of events that usually irritate us. In meditation, we can see through the illusions of past, present, and future. Our experience becomes the continuity of nowness. The past is only an unreliable memory held in the present. The future is only a projection of our present conceptions. The present itself vanishes as soon as we try to grasp it. So why bother with attempting to establish an illusion of solid ground? We should free ourselves from our past memories and preconceptions of meditation. Each moment of meditation is completely unique and full of potentiality. In such moments, we will be incapable of judging our meditation in terms of past experience, dry theory, or hollow rhetoric. Simply plunging directly into meditation in the moment now, with our whole being, free from hesitation, boredom, or excitement, is enlightenment. All right, so let's go back up to the top. I think you can see why this is one of my favorite texts to revisit. It's a very, very profound text, very practical, actually. And it brings the experience of Dzogchen, the practice of Dzogchen, right into like the immediacy of our kind of ordinary daily life, right? It's not some kind of far off goal to be accomplished. It's not something extraordinary that we're going to be experiencing. It's this timeless, ever-present, naked state of awareness itself that we can experience and that's accessible. It's not something that's beyond our experience or kind of, reserved for the fortunate few necessarily. It's something that we can all recognize in our own practice, recognize in our own meditation, and learn to work with that skillfully and kind of bring that into our lives. So I think obviously feel free to jump in anytime anyone has a question. Isabel, I see you just raised your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, actually you were going back to the top, but I'd like to go back to the last line and see what you think about my question about it. Let me put back the text on my screen. Gosh, what's that? I see Trump on my screen. Oh, just a minute. I didn't open the right page. Okay, so simply plunging directly into meditation in the moment now with our whole being, free from hesitation, boredom, or excitement, is enlightenment. So my question is is enlightenment can be just like a moment. It's not like, because when we talk about enlightened beings, we feel like it's an eternal state of being enlightened or something like that, So here could we say that we can have glimpses of enlightenment when we are in such a state?
Yeah, of course. So this is kind of the essence of the Dzogchen view, right? Which is that when we recognize our own nature, when we rest in that own nature, that is the awakened state, right? That's what all the Dzogchen teachings tell us, all the Mahamudra teachings tell us, is that when you recognize that nature directly, that is enlightenment. Enlightenment isn't some place that you go to. It's not it's not something other than this present place. Enlightenment is possible for you right here, right now, in my basement, right? In the most ordinary of places, but it's not a state. It's an unfolded, it's an ever unfold, it's not a thing, right? Enlightenment's not a thing. It's not something you accomplished. It's actually the true nature of reality itself, the true nature of your mind. And so when you recognize that, at that time, that is enlightenment. But to do so continually, like the Buddhas do, to carry that moment of insight, that moment of realization into every nook and cranny of your life. So there's a difference between getting a glimpse of enlightenment, the enlightened nature, and being a Buddha, right? Like a Buddha is someone who's like exhausted all their karma, exhausted all confusion. They're enlightened all the time, but that's not enlightenment as a state that they're trying to like hold this like state of concentration. It's just that they've purified their perceptions and their experience to such an extent that they're no longer ensnared by the web of grasping and karma and afflictive emotions and all that, right? They're liberating all of that as it arises. So there's no cause for being kind of sucked back into the cycle of samsara. Where we might have a moment of awakening, a moment of enlightenment on our meditation cushion, but the moment after that, we're thinking, oh, wow, that was a wonderful experience. And so now enlightenment has just become, from an experience, it becomes an idea that we're trying to hang on to. Ooh, that was a really excellent meditation session, right? And so the Buddhas don't have that conception. They don't, like Dilgo Khyentse says here, the everyday practice of Dzogchen is just everyday life itself. Since the undeveloped state does not exist, there is no need to behave in any special way or attempt to attain anything above and beyond what you actually are. There should be no feeling or striving to reach some amazing goal or advanced state. We're actually striving to reach some amazing goal or advanced state, right? But that's out of confusion. That's because we don't recognize the naturally present awakened mind right here, right now, this present moment. is that reality, but we're not recognizing that the ground of being. And so out of confusion, we get wrapped up in thinking this is not it. And we put enlightenment outside of ourselves as some other thing to be attained. So this all comes down to the Dzogchen view. And if we really understand the Dzogchen view, then there's really nothing more to do other than recognize that state. But the problem is that's hard to do.
I think they say the view is the path, actually.
Yeah.
In Dzogchen, right?
Yep.
And the fruit, it's everything.
And the fruition, yeah. There's really no, there's nothing, there's no coming, there's no going. But whether or not we can actually hold that experience without getting caught up in it, without reifying it, without, that's the hard part of Dzogchen, is that, we can conceptually understand the view, but then when we try to actually like live that truth, it's hard because it's like we have all this sticky mind that we fixate on concepts, we fixate on self and other, we fixate on our negative emotions, we're caught up in karma, like all this stuff is like, the web of relative reality. Carlo, go ahead.
Yes, you could say that instead of practicing the enlightened Dzogchen view, we're actually consciously practicing endarkenment view. So we're by doing all that pursuing, like you said, we're in the endarkened state of endarkenment.
Yeah, I'd say we're continuously doing the generation stage, but rather than doing the generation stage out of the wisdom of emptiness, we just do the generation stage out of the play of ego, right? So we give rise to ego. Ego has all these wants and desires. Those become the focus of our reality. They drive our actions. They drive our decisions. They drive the way we talk about, ourselves, all that kind of stuff. And so we create this mandala of confusion out of ego. And so the practice of the path is to like, just one by one, starting to like break down that confusion, break down that, try to counteract and correct a lot of our actions so that we start to actually align with the path of Dharma, align with the path of liberation. I would say align with, rather than maybe the path of liberation, align with a liberating path that is itself liberating, right? So yeah, like, the reality is for a lot of us, unless we're doing a lot of shamatha, we're doing a lot of vipassana, so we stabilized our mind, we've developed some insight into the nature of the mind. We practice things like Vajrasattva to purify obscurations, to recognize and purify obscurations, Guru Yoga to connect with the lineage, the blessings of the lineage, and kind of bring those that potentiality, right? To like get a taste of that potentiality in our own experience. All of that is necessary in order to approach what Dilgo Khyentse is talking about here. So that at the time of just resting in the natural state, that we can actually rest, right? And I think this. So Isabel wanted to start at the end, but that's going to bring us right back to the beginning, which is the everyday practice of Dzogchen is simply to develop a complete carefree acceptance and openness to all situations without limit. The everyday practice of Dzogchen is simply to develop a complete carefree acceptance and openness to all situations without limit. That's like impossible, right? Think about the impossibility of that. Is it possible? Develop a complete carefree acceptance. Completely carefree. When you're meditating, are you completely carefree? Or are you caring about something? Oh, I want to have the more peacefulness. I want to have, there's a little dullness there. I want to get rid of dullness. You're caring about a lot of things in your meditation, right? Oh, I want to have you know, a deep experience. Oh, I want to experience emptiness. You know, we have all this acceptance and rejection playing out in a single moment of meditation. Even a very simple meditation, like mindfulness of the breath, right? This kind of present mindfulness of just watching the breath. So this sentence is very beautiful. Everyday practice of Dzogchen is simply to develop a complete carefree acceptance and openness to all situations without limit. But that's actually very difficult to do. Carlo, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. The difficulty lies in the fact that we're a biological organism, and the most abhorrent thing to us is our death. So to be carefree and limitless, it can only be in a split moment that's safe. As soon as that potential threat to the life of our organism arises, it's like you won't be carefree and limitless, and so it's kind of this interplay that we have. It's kind of deep in our organism to avoid anything that could seriously threaten our existence. So in a way, that's why when you say it's impossible, it's really because of that. And I think that's right in a way. I mean, it'd be silly to negate that, be stupid. But yet, I think in a moment you can be carefree and limitless, because not every moment is really potential threat to our survival and existence.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the time, it's just a mentally created fear. But yet, you know, it's still there.
Yeah. So in meditation, the way that we can build on our practice in such a way that we can make this possible, right? Seems impossible in our current kind of situation. But the way that we can make this possible, the way that we can open the door to possibility, to actually being able to practice this type of instruction, is when we practice shamatha, we start to develop that stable, calm equipoise, right? That sense of equanimity. And then from that equanimity, we can start to understand the nature of the mind. We can understand movement. We can understand stillness. We can understand how things are, you know, free to change as, you know, there's kind of just the flux of, you know, appearances and sights and sounds and sensations and all that kind of stuff just starts to play out, right? And then we can apply the wisdom of emptiness, which sees all those things as just this illusory play, right? In Dzogchen, we call this the rolpa, the display, right? Everything's just kind of playing itself out freely without any kind of manipulation or any kind of, we're not fabricating anything. We're not trying to control anything. There's no sense of like, you know, accepting some experiences or pushing away other experiences. We're just seeing this illusory play of phenomena within the openness of this present awareness. And within that moment, like Carlos saying, within that moment of meditation, because we're just seeing this illusory unfolding, this illusory play, well, there is a complete carefree acceptance of that, right? We're just letting it be as it is, right? That's the first meditation instruction for resting in the natural state. Let it be as it is, right? And so by doing that, by actually practicing in that way, we can give rise to this openness, this sense of carefree acceptance. And because we're not actually, if we're not clinging to phenomena in any way, if there's no fixation or grasping, if everything is really actually just this unceasing luminosity, this unceasing play of the nature of the mind that's just arising in any way whatsoever, right? Sights, sounds, whatever it is, it's just arising. Well, then all situations, because that encompasses every possible experience, right? The display of phenomena unfolding, that encompasses all situations. So if we're able to do that, then the display is kind of free in its own place, right? We don't need to liberate it it's already liberated upon arising, right? There's no need to like apply some kind of antidote or to do some type of like tantric visualization where we're, generating ourselves as the deity and visualizing the mandala and all that. Like all of that is to wander from this present moment of this natural unfolding and natural liberation of whatever's arising in this moment. And so there's no, if we're letting everything be as it is and we're able to maintain that sense of presence, that sense of openness, then this first line of Dilgo Khyentse becomes possible. We're able to actually have a complete carefree acceptance or openness to all situations without limit. This is just in a moment of meditation we're talking about here. We're not talking about taking this and like walking down the street yet. We're just talking about in meditation. This is how we can start to have a taste of this in our practice. The next line goes on to say, we should realize openness as the playground of our emotions and relate to people without artificiality, manipulation, or strategy. So here he's talking about, this is, he's talking about it like in the context of like post-meditation here, right? So if we've had this sense of openness on the meditation cushion and we're getting used to working with that in meditation, in the reality of our lived experience, any type of projection or like so artificiality, manipulation, strategy, that's all like the game of ego, right? That's like treating your relationships and your, everyday experience as like a chessboard where you think, oh, well, if I make this move and then they're going to make that move and then I'm going to do this, and like, you're not actually open to the playground of whatever's arising. You're calculating and you're kind of strategizing your move, right? So it's one is very closed down because you're just focused on ego and self and what you're going to do in relation to the other people, versus the sense of openness, which sees whatever's arising without any kind of strategy, without any type of manipulation, without any kind of projecting onto the, you're not rehearsing your reality. You're just, in that play of whatever's happening. Carla, go ahead.
In the past, we've been involved in group work with other people where that artificiality and manipulation and strategy was in play, and eventually all that came of it was we left because it was abhorrent, So it's interesting if you've experienced it that way. Likewise, if one gets engaged in that, it's equally experienced as abhorrent by others. Like you said, you're being played on a chessboard, which nobody wants that.
I think there's a drive to wanting an outcome. We're grasping for a particular outcome all the time, and we're vying for that, and it's so habituated.
Yeah.
We want it to go a certain way. I want it to go this way. And it's to just let it be is a big exercise.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're social creatures, so it's normal to want to like interact with other people on the basis of status and titles and hierarchy and, affiliation, who's who, that sort of thing, right? Like that's our normal kind of social conditioning, right? So that's all about manipulation and strategy and the game of life, right? But that's not what we're talking about if we're practicing Dzogchen in everyday life. That's much more kind of open and responsive. And when we talk about compassion, sometimes we use this word responsiveness, right? Open, available, responsive. That's more the tone of a Dzogchen practitioner than someone who's calculating and manipulative and trying to like, come in here and like control this container for their own kind of, benefit or their status or whatever it is that they think is important. He goes on to say, we should experience everything totally, never withdrawing into ourselves as a marmot hides in its hole. This practice releases tremendous energy, which is usually constricted by the process of maintaining fixed reference points. Referentiality is the process which we retreat from direct experience of everyday life. So the direct experience of everyday life is this open, expansive, carefree openness to whatever's arising, right? But out of the referentiality of ego and the need to maintain that ego, I actually like the way he says that requires tremendous energy, right? We expend an insane amount of energy to maintain this reference point, maintain this caricature of ego, and to actually like move that through the world in a consistent fashion, right? Versus if we just relax in this open, carefree acceptance, this kind of open, ever-present, responsive way of being, then we've released a lot of that energy because we don't have to, we're not expending energy on we're not investing in that, bank account anymore of ego. We're just letting go of that investment and able to kind of just be responsive and dynamic and flexible and spontaneous. Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. This idea of releasing tremendous energy, which is usually constricted by the process of maintaining a fixed reference point. Very interesting. All right, so he goes on to say, being present in the moment may initially trigger fear, right? And that's kind of like what Carlo was saying before, is like, we're this biological creature. We have a lot of conditioning. Obviously, we have a lot of, natural self-grasping and this idea of like self-protection and preservation and the openness, the vulnerability of openness, right? The vulnerability of being completely open and responsive and available and receptive can initially trigger some kind of fear, right? Because we're so habituated to the shield, right? The kind of buffer, this kind of, we want to feel safe, right? But by welcoming the sensation of fear with complete openness, we cut through the barriers created by habitual emotional patterns. By welcoming the sensation of fear. I mean, to me, that sensation of fear is just that ego, that kind of subtle self that's arising, trying to like, it doesn't want to let go of its control over our perceived reality, right? It wants to make sure that it has that thread. And so even though you're kind of going about your day being a Buddhist, the ego still has that thread and can still tug on it, right? And it still has that single thread that's woven throughout all your activities. So it doesn't want to let go of that because that's the lifeline, right? But if we're able to let go of that, if we're able to just notice it and be with complete openness, let go, then it cuts through the barriers of all habitual emotional patterns, right? Because that thread of ego is what's the basis for all of our emotional patterns. There's no kind of, it's ego that wants, that desires and wants and is attached to the phenomena. It's ego that's averse and develops anger and kind of, rejection of certain experiences. He goes on to say, when we engage in the practice of discovering space, we should develop the feeling of opening ourselves out completely to the entire universe. We should open ourselves with absolute simplicity and nakedness of mind. This is the powerful and ordinary practice of dropping the mask of self-protection. So just letting go completely, right? Letting go completely as it is. Letting go, dropping the mask of self-protection. Dropping all the kind of, there's a word that's slipping my mind. I want to say shielding, but there's another word that I'm thinking of. This kind of like shielding of the ego is kind of putting up these
armor.
Yeah, armor. Yeah, that's it. Like armor, like fencing, like it's creating a separation between you and the world because it wants to protect itself, right? So it's like this armoring of all this projection of what it thinks it needs to do to kind of maintain control and preserve itself. But by doing that, we just are ensnared in all this like other problems. We're creating all these other downstream problems for ourselves. So by dropping that mask of self-protection and opening ourselves completely to the entire universe, absolute simplicity and nakedness of the mind. There's no, it's not even like we have a piece of cotton to protect ourselves, right? We're completely open and responsive and dynamic and receptive. Actually, the vulnerability for me comes back into this sense of the vulnerability is this sense of complete openness, complete, impartiality, the simplicity. Isabel, go ahead.
Yeah, you're touching the topic of my question about. Oh, let me go back to the text again. Yeah, the paragraph you just read, the first line, first sentence. When we engage in the practice of discovering space. Discovering space, I find it very interesting, as two words put together here. Discovering space, it's so like etherical or
Yeah.
difficult to talk about that in words, but could you say what you can on discovering space? I like these two words put there.
I think the translation here is maybe a little bit, it is, when I read that too, I was like, that's kind of interesting. I think what they're talking about here is discovering spaciousness, right? When we engage in the practice of discovering spaciousness, which is the spaciousness of being, the spaciousness of the nature of the mind, right? Or openness, right? When we engage in this practice of discovering openness, we should have the feeling of opening ourselves up completely to the entire universe. So there's this sense of openness, this all-encompassing. That's what we're discovering, right? It's not like we're discovering the element of space, like this, like something outside of us. It's not outside of us. It's
lost in space.
Yeah, it's our own kind of spaciousness.
Yeah, spaciousness sounds better. Thank you.
All right. He says, next paragraph. We should make a division in our meditation between perception and field of perception. That's like in Dzogchen, we always talk about this inseparability of yin rik, right? So awareness is the rikpa, rik, and then the yin is the field of perception, right? The field of experience, the field of reality, right? The dharma dhatu, the true nature of reality. Those are inseparable. So he says we don't make a division between perception here, right? And then the field of perception. Those are inseparable. Like, don't be the cat watching the mouse, like ready to pounce, right? It's not, and the purpose of meditation is not to withdraw into, it's not a sense of like withdrawing into the mind or like deeply concentrating or having this like, constrained sense of self. It's this opening. It's this completely opening ourselves out to the entire universe where there's no awareness itself is not here experiencing the field of reality, right? You're opening out completely to the universe, and awareness and the field are inseparable, right? We're resting in that sense of spaciousness in which there is no border between the experiencer and the experienced. It's all just this open field of awareness. Practice should be free and non-conceptual, unconstrained by introspection and concentration. That's basically just saying we're not doing this practice on the level of ideas. We're not like, obviously we're talking ourselves, we're talking it through right now, but like when we're doing the practice, this isn't we're not narrating this in our head as we're kind of meditating. We're not thinking, oh, I'm resting in the natural state and oh, my mind and awareness are inseparable. We're not having that type of commentary. There's no commentary. There's no kind of fabrication of that experience, right? We're actually letting everything be in a non-conceptual and free way, even though we might have thoughts, but those are just kind of like this, like these thoughts are just like birds in the sky, right? They're not actually creating any kind of obscuration, and we're not like following after them or chasing after them and thinking about groceries. Like they're just kind of coming and going, like the flight of a bird through the sky. And it's also unconstrained by introspection and concentration. So we're not being kind of really uptight and rigid about this practice, right? We're not being really kind of, we're not being really focused. It's not like shamatha meditation where we're trying to develop this like one-pointed focus. It's this open, spacious awareness. Carla, go ahead.
It's like with this text, he's pointing out how we should be resting, but at the same time is pointing out the errors that we make. And so in a way, it's kind of like a simultaneous recognition of both happening. You know what I mean? That don't do this, that don't do that, in that we're seeing we're doing that, and yet at the same time we're aware of how it ought to be.
Yep.
It's almost like this juxtaposition to rest in.
Yeah. I personally find this text, this is, it's so direct and so profound and so practical. I think, a lot of times like we see a lot of like Dzogchen teachings, or you're reading books, or like, and it's like, sounds very kind of, everything sounds amazing and it's very like profound and deep, but it's like, this is like very practical. Like it's just very like lived, right? It's clear that this is a direct transmission of lived experience. It's not an idea. It's not kind of something he's kind of making up. He's just kind of giving you the sauce that directly. Donna, go ahead. I see your hand up.
I was thinking about the word space and how I sort of interpret that as being freedom or choice. So if I have a tendency to become resentful, I don't have to be resentful. It's just that's my habit. So you always have a choice. So if you know that it's time to clean the kitchen, you don't have to say, oh no, not that again. You can do something else and expand into space and do things differently. Use your emotions differently. Space is just freedom. Is that too simple?
I don't know if I'm hearing you correctly. So this sense of space, I guess I'm not quite seeing how you're interpreting this as like choices and like making how that's other than maybe like you have the opportunity to make a different choice, but we're not really talking on the level of choices here. We're talking about because choices are a conceptual thing, right? We're thinking about something, we're deciding this is what I want to do, right? I want to clean the kitchen. I don't want to vacuum, right? But all of that's just within the sphere of like concepts. So I'm not quite sure how that's tying into space, I guess, or the sense of spaciousness, the sense of openness.
Openness to not letting old habits control the way you think about things.
Yes, exactly. It's this possibility of.
Yeah, I'm still pretty much into the thinking and emotions state of being, I guess. So I'm not engaged in meditation so much as dealing with day-to-day human beings and so forth. So I'm just kind of expanding this idea into the range of operational utility.
Yeah, I mean, I think learning to bring it out from your meditation cushion and starting to bring some of this wisdom into your lived experience in your house, learning to have a sense of more openness and kind of spaciousness just as you kind of move through your day, making, dinner, making coffee, getting ready for bed, those kind of things. Just having more of a carefree kind of acceptance is one way.
Dealing with people. all day long.
Yeah, people are challenging, that's for sure. All right, let's see. I think we're almost at the time here. We have quite a lot more to go. Maybe we'll finish this next week. Let's see. Is this a good place to end? Yeah, this next paragraph is pretty. I think we probably need to talk about that more deeply because it says, we'll leave it here, but I want to read this next paragraph. It just says, we kind of plant the seed for next week. And this is a little bit of translation mumbo jumbo, Isabel. So I think we'll address that next week too, as well, because it begins with vast, unoriginated, self-luminous wisdom space is the ground. Now, if that isn't a bunch of chop suey, hocus pocus, word, gobbledygook. I'm not really sure what it is, but vast, unoriginated, self-luminous wisdom space is the ground of being, the beginning and the end of confusion. The presence of awareness in the primordial state has no bias towards enlightenment or non-enlightenment. This ground of being, which is known as pure or original mind, is the source from which all phenomena arise. It is known as the Great Mother, as the womb potentiality in which all things arise and dissolve in natural self-perfectness and absolute spontaneity. So we'll continue from there next week, because there's actually this is a lot of this kind of gets back into the Dzogchen view and like really kind of narrowing down on what it is that we're recognizing, and then on the basis of that recognition, how that kind of unfolds into this experience of self-perfectness and absolute spontaneity. So yeah, that's a good bridge for next week. Carla, go ahead.
Yeah, just on the topic of that profound Dzogchen view, for most of us, we're occupied with the issues of daily life, ordinary life. But at a certain point at the end of our life, all our daily mundane concerns are not going to matter. And we'll come to that point at the end where we actually will confront the view, right? And so if we've been practicing all along these moments where we're getting accustomed to that Dzogchen view, the higher view, we'll be prepared at the end. Because we all have to face our ultimate demise at some point. And those who are practicing now, even in these moments, despite all our mundane requirements and issues, we'll be able to recognize it because we've prepared. And I think in many respects, it puts it in perspective that if it's compared to the point of our end of days, right? But right now we're all preoccupied mainly with mundane stuff. But those who haven't prepared, they won't be able to deal with the shock of it.
Yeah, exactly. Because they'll have that as soon as they start having this sense of vulnerability and openness to that death, like you're talking about, right? That all of that shielding and guarding and armoring of the ego just comes flying back, and it's like there's no familiarity with kind of holding this sense of openness and spaciousness, even if we're only able to do this, for brief moments throughout the day, or on our meditation cushion, or just kind of on retreat even. Just to develop some sense of familiarity with this is a huge benefit, like you're saying, Carla, at the time of death, because we'll already kind of have at least a working a communication, right? A working connection, a communication with this state. And so there, obviously there's still going to be fear, there's still going to be self-grasping, but we'll be able to kind of carry some of that wisdom of our own experience into that, and with that, have much more kind of freedom and openness to the process of dying and death.